Okay, let's continue. Can you guys hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
guys see?
Yes.
Okay. So now we have two more questions on the discussion channel. Okay, so the first question is why I cannot declare like this even if it is erased at the runtime? Because Java does not allow you to declare. Then how come we can get it at the runtime? This declaration is not allowed. So we cannot get it at runtime. Even the declaration is not allowed. If you want a list of collection, so this is the one way to go with. The rule is I cannot make this one as a. The rule is, what is the rule? Component type is not allowed for the parameterized type. So this is your parameterized type. It is not allowed to declare as component type. That is the rule. So you cannot declare like this. So the rule is even not allowed to declare like this. So that is the error. As I mentioned, why we need to declare before the method name. See, this is a method name. My class is not a generic class. If your class is generic class, what I do in the my pair class, I say the generic class can accept two values. So that's what you can directly use this get key method will return a key. So in this scenario, your class name is called generics demo December 2022, which is not a generic class. Even if you declare this class as E, then you no need to specify E in the method. Okay, Hira, did that make that point? My class is not generic now, but I want to make my method as generic. So at the time, before the return type, you have to specify the letter. Okay. If you declare E as a top level in the class, then there is not necessary to specify here. The rule is even my class is not generic, you can have generic method. So if you have some generic method, if you use some parameterized type, that type should be specified before the return type. So that is the rule. Any questions? So let's go and see so this is the generic method example I show you already. Okay, so now we are going to learn how to make our method, which is a non-generic type. I would like to make it into a generic type. So we are going to learn some wildcards, upper boundary and lower boundary, everything through this example. So here is a simple example. There is an in-class exercise as given to you. This is the count occurrence method. Will take a string collection and the target is as a type of string. So what the function will do it is, I want to count the occurrence of target in this ARR collection. So over here, we are going to make a count is equal to 0. And if target equal to null, I'm going to count how many nulls I have. If target is not equal to null, I'm going to make a count of how many target is available. So this is your regular method, but this method can accept only for string type. Now I want to convert this method into a type to accept any type. So what small changes we need to do it here? Can you think about what are the two changes you need to make it here? You want to make this method as generic method. First thing is, what is the first thing you need to do?
Before return type, initialize the
Yes.
generic.
Before integer type, you have one string type, right? I need only a string type. So make it as a E or T. Wherever you have a string, replace that with T. So that is the solution. So you can open that exercise, right? So your class is not a generic class. So even if I put T here, then you don't need to specify T here. But my class is not a generic class. Only my method is generic. So that reason, before the return type put T, wherever you need a string type, everything is replaced with T. So this is your functional style of code. If they want to write imperative style of code, if you want to convert it into a functional style, I want to make the collection of streams and I want to filter, but it is an imperative style of code is applied because I need to make target equal to null. I want to return a null. Otherwise with that one. So this is an idea of how to use a stream pipeline. But as of now, your knowledge is how to convert this method into a generic method. In your exam also, you have to write one method which is for generic method for according to the problem requirements. you need to change the implementation to the generic. So that may be convert to non-generic to generic, or you have to write the full implementation for generic. So any question on this knowledge? The simple generic method.
Yeah, I see in line this thing we have the equal, so we need to restriction the type of the generic, right? Otherwise, it will fail at the line 16.
Because the equal is automatically comes from object. Okay, so for this scenario, we have no issues. But when you want to find maximum or minimum, we have some issues. So for this problem, we have no issues by comparing equals. Okay. No issues with this problem, but still we have some issues. We'll go over one by one. Okay, so this is a generic method solution. I show you. Now, we are going to learn how to find the maximum of given collection for any type. So you have a demo code which I uploaded on your daily notes. The file name called as find max. So let me close all these things as of now. And generic, okay, find max. So we are going to learn how to find the maximum value for the given integer collection. So what this method will do it is take a list of integer and I'm going to find the maximum value from this collection. So we pass an object type. So I can call I.compare compare 2 of max is greater than 0. I identified this is the max. Do you have any question on this logic? How to find the maximum value from the given list collection?
No.
Okay, this method will work for only integer type, right? So that is our problem one. We created a method which compare a collection of list. So I want to make this method as generic. So what we do it is usually all the type will be replaced with T. So what we are going to do it here is convert this code, the max 0, this is a method, max 1. Whenever I need a type integer, I replace with T. So I do this statement, the same code, okay? There will be no change in this code. Just we compare this into a generic method. So when I do this line, you will get error. Okay, so when you do this comparison, over here, it's an integer type. So the compare method comes from integer.compare2 method. Now this T is an unknown type, right? So whether that type has implemented a comparator or not, we have no idea. So when I do this method, what the error here is undefined for the type T. So the compare to the T is an unknown type. So when we call the method, we need to pass the data, then it will infer the type. So at this time, whether the T has this compared to or not, we have an issue. When we try to make a generic solution, when I want to find the maximum value, I will get a error. Okay. So this reason is T may not be a type, whether that has a compare to operation or not. Don't know by the compiler. That's what it produces a error. So now how can we fix this? Okay, so we can fix these issues by introducing a concept of wildcards. So for example, the compare to method comes from comparable interface. So what we are going to do it is, if a type what you specify that should implement a comparable interface. So for that we can specify like this, T extends comparable. So that's what we are going to learn now, what is extends keyword with the generics. When I do this line, you have no error. Okay. So now see here, if I do 2 extends comparable, when you do the same line, there will be no issue. What we are doing is the type must implement a comparable. We are setting some boundary. That's what we are learning now. Okay. Then we are going to generalize this one by using a comparable T. So that also generic comparable T. We are going to do the scenario, which is the next method, T extends comparable T. So over here, your comparable is a object type, right? Did you notice? Your comparable is a type of object type. There is no parameter. we are going to make that one is also a generic for the type. Now, when I do this line, if you try to compare, okay, let's for this scenario, I'm going to call max of 0, which is for integer type. Then I have another collection, string collection. I'm going to call max of 2, so which is comparable. I'm going to call this method. Okay. Then I'm going to call 2 times max of 2, right? That is not needed. Okay. We have written another function max 3. So max 3, which works fine. Okay. The max 3, which works for any collection. So max 3, we declare our comparable also a type of generic. Now, there will be no issue so far. When I run my code, okay, let me run this one. It will compare and 3 different results will be printed on the calls. So from the integer collection, the maximum value is 4. Right. So we pass all integer collection. Let's do with the string collection too, with all the same methods. So the maximum string may be OPQ or ST Tom. Let's see. So it printed Tom. I have no issue so far my implementation, but what happened is I'm going to make a collection of local dates. If I compare max 3, okay, so what is your max 3? Let's go to your max 3. Implementation has take a list of T and it is going to compare the date. Okay, so automatically I will get a compilation here. What it says is the list T is a type of find max generic is not applicable for the argument local date. So here we have issue. Still, we cannot find out the generic solution for this problem. When I pass a local date to this method, this is my final solution for this scenario. When I pass local date, it gives me an error. That's what we are going to look out here. Okay, so we are going to make it into a comparable of generic type. We put T here. So for I want to try to use this implementation for the local date, you will get a compilation error. That's what I show you, right? When you see this line, will produce a compilation error. Right, when I do max of dates, it gives me a compilation error. The problem is, this is the slide. Okay, so local date is inherited from chrono local date. Okay, but chrono local date or local date does not implement the interface comparable. But the comparable is not implemented in the local date, but it's implemented its parent. So now I have an issue. What happened if that local date? So as we mentioned here is, according to this rule, if the type has implements comparable, that is our rule. If that particular type, for example, if local date implements comparable, which work. But according to this scenario, local date is not implement comparable, but its parent implement the comparable. So we have an issue. Let's go and see the local date. If you want to see, go to your local date API. So does it implements comparable here? No, it implements chrono local date. When you go over the chrono local date, which implements comparable. So now we need to set the boundary. Over here, our boundary is the type implements comparable, but that is not suitable now. Even its parent implements comparable, our logic needs to work. So for that scenario, we are going to learn about wildcards now. Okay, so that's what we are going to focusing on. As of this conclusion, if I want to generalize some method to find the maximum that implements a comparable, but what if its parent implement comparable? So how can I make one function which accepts for any type? So for that, not only the type T is enough, your type needs some boundaries, whether which implements or its parent. So how can we deal that in your generic type? So inside that we specify, right? So over here we say T extends. What is this extends? So these are all called wildcard boundaries. So the comparable is a boundary for your type T. So how can we use this extends or its parent? That's what we are getting into the concept of wildcards. Okay, So there are two boundaries you can use, upper boundary and the lower boundary. Okay, so wildcard boundaries are first one is question mark extends. The second boundary is this is an upper lower boundary or upper boundary. Bounded wildcard and age question mark extends employee. Okay, so and we have question mark super. Let me put that. Question mark super. So question mark extends, you can put the parent type. So when you use question mark super, you can use the subtype. Okay, so child type, you can use the child type. So which means it's a lower boundary. Subclass is a lower boundary. When I use parents, we are limiting the upper boundary. And we have third type is unknown wildcard. Okay, the third one is simply question mark, no boundaries, which is unknown type. Okay, this is what we are going to look now. The three different boundaries, how to work with this. Let's go with the first type. So as we know that generic subtyping is not covariant. So I cannot assign list of manager collection to the list of employee. I will get error. But when you use question mark extends employee, then you can assign subtype to the super type. So that's what we are going to learn. Okay, so for this one, there is an example called generics.extend. Let me pull over this example, lecture.generics.extend. So here is your employee class, which has a name, salary, and hire date. So we populated through constructor all the values, some getter methods, and we override equals hash code, everything, clone method, so many things. So that's not a matter now. Okay, go to your manager class. Manager inherits from employee. Additionally, it has a bonus field. So it has additional field is additional instant field bonus. Now, I want to go for the main class. According to this scenario, I have a list manager class. I'm going to add a manager instance. Okay, let's go with this one. According to the rule, we know generic subtyping is not covariant, right? So you have a list employee I declared as a type of parent. When I assign to list one, the covariant is assignment, assigning the subtype collection to the parent type collection. So this is a type of list manager. I cannot assign because of the covariant rule. So what the error is? Cannot convert from list manager to list employee because of generic subtyping is not covariant. So how can I override of this error? So this line we can extend with the boundary. Question mark. Question mark means unknown type. If we put T means some name for the type. But when I put question mark means there is no type, unknown type. But this has some boundary. What it is if any class you want to assign on the right side that has the parent of type employee. So according to this inheritance relationship, manager is an employee. So we said any type which inherit from employee you can assign. So we can get rid of this error by setting a boundary. Any collection can take a type of employee. So this way you can get rid of the error. Okay, any questions here? I will come to this part later. Okay, super, we haven't discussed it. So this is the use of question mark extends. So when I do this one, I can add list one to the list 3. Any questions here? Question mark extends. Okay, there are some drawbacks. We'll go one by one according to this slide. So if I do this line, I'll get a year. Okay, so for that reason, we are going to do this. Why extends employee, you won't get any year. Okay, so can you tell me the answer for this one, whether it is valid or invalid? List manager inherit from list employee. Can I do the covariant rule? First one. Is it valid or invalid?
Invalid.
Invalid. The covariant rule. I cannot assign list manager to list employee, right? Can I do this one? Question mark extends employee to
Yes.
list object.
Valid.
How come it valid?
Invalid.
If this type should extends employee, does object extends from employee? No. Okay, list manager question mark extends employee. But we didn't say manager is inherited from employee. I cannot assign this type to this. No. Now, the fourth one is valid. I'll show you all this example through IDE. Then you will get a clarity. Exercise 11.3. Let me go over the in-class exercise. Then we will test everything. We close all. Exercise 11.3. Okay. You have an employee class same. And you have a manager class everything. Let's go to the test class. Question number 1. All right. So what is the question number 1? I can assign the list of collection manager to the list of employee. So the covariant rule. You have list manager, you added the data. When I do list 1, the manager subtype assigned to this type is not allowed. Any question on the diagram 1 and the code? This is invalid. Any questions here? Okay, let's move to the next one. What we are doing is, I want to assign any type has a parent employee to the object. Okay, so over here I have a list of objects. So what we are saying is, I created an array of question mark extends employee. So when I do, what I'm doing is, I'm assigning e-list to this object. So we'll get compilation error. So here question mark is an unknown type, right? So whether this object is inherited from employee, no, then only the subtype can assign. So over this rule is, if manager is inherited from employee, I can do it. That's it here. Your object, you are assigning this type. So when I do this one, you will get compilation error. So what the error is, cannot convert from employee to list object because this is an unknown type. I'm not sure whether this implements the employee class or not. So whenever you have a question mark means unknown type. So this type is inherited from employee. When you look at employee, this is an employee class. It does not inherit from anything. So what we specify the rule is, if that inherit from employee, whether employee inherited from employee, that does not know because of question mark. It does not verify whether implemented or not. But in this case, when we do question mark extends employee, when you assign manager, the manager is inherited from employee according to the class definition. But this part is give you a error. Okay, so let's go to the scenario 3. List manager and question mark extends employee. Go to your choice number 3. So now you have no error. It works. So question mark, what is our 3? Okay. Question mark extends employee list 3. I'm going to assign list 1. List 1 is a manager collection. So when I assign manager to this one, it will check. So now this question mark is a type which is unknown. But when you assign, that type implements the employee class. So I have no issue. If I use a extended boundary, the 3 choice is correct. So manager assigned to extends employee because manager is inherited from the employee. Let's go to the scenario 4. So if any type extends manager can assign to any type extends employee. So manager is inherited from the employee. So automatically, whatever type inherits from manager, when you assign to this one, the manager is inherited from employee. So we put a boundary for assignment. So the subtype should assign manager. So over here, I created an employee and also a manager. So question mark extends what we are doing. Okay, this is not the scenario, right? So I am going to assign, this is your list, manager type. I can assign to question mark extends employee. So boundary, when you assign a right side, think about in this way. Okay, what is the list type? Is a any type which inherit manager, but I'm assigning to the employee type. So when you assign to the employee, so it says any type has a boundary of employee. Yes, manager is inherited from employee. So it work. Okay, I created a list for which inherit from manager. Okay, so I assign list 3 to the manager. What is list 3? List 3 question mark extends manager. So the same, what we did the same. Okay, so this is the rule, the 4 exercises. So it's quite confusing. What do you need to think it is? When you do the right side to the left, this boundary is acceptable. You can assign right side to the left side. Okay.
Now, can you come back on the example B?
3.
B, yeah. The example 2 B, the diagram B.
Yeah, does not object. This is the one. Okay, let me do this one. You will get here. So what we say here is you have to think about the right side.
Can you change on the line 15? E list equal object list.
Can you repeat again what I need to do?
Yeah, line 15.
Line number 16.
Yeah, we assign E list equal to object list is can.
E list, you want to do opposite side? E list is equal to OB list.
Yeah.
You want me to do this?
Yeah. If we push at the line 15 is still error or not?
So what you're doing is object, right? You assign the right side to the left side. When you do, OB list is a type of object. But what the rule is, when you want to assign here, that should be a boundary of employee, right? So over here, object to E list. This is a downcasting, right?
Yeah, so instead
I cannot assign object type to the E list. Okay, what is the rule here is? Your E list has some boundary which inherit from employee. Now what you assign to the right side, does it has a boundary of upper boundary of employee? Does it inherit? Okay, here is the question. Does OB list inherited from employee? That is the question. The answer is no, so you cannot assign. So you will get a compilation error. Look for this question. What is the question is? I am assigning the right side is E list to the object type. So now the question here is, does it has some boundary, right? The boundary what it says is it inherit from employee. Now the question here is, does employee inherit from employee? So we set the boundary. It check like this. Inherit from employee. That for this question, it is wrong. It's itself a type employee. So the question mark is unknown type. You check. Only the checking is whether inherited from employee. Any value assign on right side if inherited from employee. For this question, E list is not inherited from employee. That is the meaning when you set boundaries. But when I remove this one, okay, let me put this one. If I remove this one without boundaries, okay, so let's put employee, okay. So employee is E list 1. Now, when I assign OB list is equal to E list 1, so still it is an error because unknown type, the same covariant rule. Okay, this is also not possible. The same covariant rule.
if in line 14, if we change list question mark, list triangle bracket, then question mark, extends object, will it work? We can
Yes,
check.
yes. If you do extends object, it will work. Okay.
Okay.
Let's do this one. Question mark extends.
No, no, no. I mean in line 14. We keep this in line 15 as is, and line number 14.
Okay, line number 14.
Yes.
Object
Angle
list one. Put question mark.
question mark.
Sorry. Question mark.
Then extends object.
Extends object.
And then we
Then
want
if
to
you
assign
want
the
to assign this line, E list, right?
yes.
OB list 1 to E list. OB list 1. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I got the point.
Okay. So please, you can understand the rule. Just before assigning, make sure according to your extents, ask this question. It's by yourself. Does employee inherit from employee? No. Does object inherit from employee? Sorry, that object is inherited from employee. So then you cannot assign. Okay. That's what when you put a question mark extend means it has a boundary. If that assignment satisfies that boundary, then you can assign. Otherwise, you cannot assign it. So let's go with another better example for more clarity. Let's go with this one. Generics dot add all method. Then you will get more clarity. Then we will discuss more in this if you have any questions. Okay. Let's go over lecture.generics.add on. So we have an employee class which has a name and salary. Then manager inherited from employee. So we have an interface called mylist. Okay, let's go with this method first. So inside this interface, you have one add method and we have an one add all method will takes the collection of same type and I have get method and get size method. So this is your interface, which is a generic interface, which has add method, add all, get an integer size. So add accept any type. And you have an integer method will return an object in that particular position. And I have a get size method will return a count of elements. Let's go to your my list implementation. I'm going to comment line this part and do this one. Okay. So your class which implement this interface. So everything is generic class and the interface is also generic. So I created an array of object type and whenever I want to do add, so here we use an object type to do this one. Whenever I add an element of type T, which will be stored in your collection, when I want to add all, it's a type of T, then I'm going to call list.getOff. So whatever value you have, just get the position and I'm going to add the value. So we do some logic add list. The add all method means how many elements in your collection. We loop through all the elements from your collection and add into your position. So any question on this implementation? Okay, now let's go and use this part to understand the extended boundaries wildcard. Now we don't introduce any boundaries. So it's a type T. Let's go to your test class. So I created a my list as a type of employee. So I created an employee. I add an employee. So here we have no boundaries at all. So you can add a manager and add a manager to your collection. Okay. So now when I do add all, so you will get a error. So what will be the error is when I do add all, it accepts a type of T, right? So list dot add all of list 2. What is that list 2? Is a manager collection, right? So if I try to add, you create your list as a type of employee. Please understand this line. What is your T now? Employee. Okay. So list dot add of E. What it will accept a type of employee. Then I created a manager. List dot add of M. See, what is the type accepted by your add method? The T is generic type T is replaced with employee. So manager is an employee. I have no issue when you want to add a method. When you call a add method, so e type of employee, okay, manager, I can add it. So here we are calling method, not any generics idea here. Okay, now, but when you do add all, so what is your add all method? Accept the type. Here we have a generic type. When you look at your add type, it's not generic, right? I mean, it's not a parameterized type, right? So over here, E, the type is known, employee or manager, I can do. But here is your list, the same covariant rule. Can I substitute? Whenever I need a type of employee, can I substitute manager here? That is not possible. So because your add all method accept a E type. So in your test class, when I do add all, what it say? Manager employee is not applicable for list. The same covariant rule. What you are assigning? Assigning the list to the employee. So we cannot do that. So how can I overcome this error? You will get a error because of covariant rule. When I substitute the collection of manager to the add all method, which accept a collection of employee. So it is not possible. So how come I overcome this scenario is what you need to do it is inside your interface, you have to put a boundary. So when I want to do add all, it has to accept the type E, that is the boundary. So if manager class inherited from employee, then it will work. So in your MyList implementation, you need to change the signature with add all with the boundary. So after changing this, when you go to your test class, when you do the same line, you won't get any error because add all collection accept a type of employee as well as any class inherit from employee. The same rule when you look at your array list. Okay, this is what your array list API also do. Array list. So let's see the add method. Add. So let's go to the add method signature. So many add methods. Okay, so let's go. That will be implemented in the list interface. I hope so. Okay, let's go to our array list inherited from the parent. Let's see the signature from the parent. Okay, it's the class name. Oh, I look at an array list class. Let's go over. Okay, inherit from abstract list. Let's take a look at your abstract method, which has add a type of E. So employee is replaced with the E. When you look at add all method, okay, so where all, see here, collection extends E. So when you call add all, you can add all subtype into that one E. So for example, in this scenario, when I create my test class by creating a list of type employee. So E is a type of employee. So when I can add employee, add of any type because manager is a employee. So whenever you call a add method, you can add a manager collection as well as you can add a employee collection. But when I do add all, if you put a type of employee, then it will not accept subtype, the covariant rule. I cannot pass subtype collection. So add all means accepting a collection. So the same rule, what it is do is it accept any collection which has the parent of E. The same rule we applied here. Any type except, but it has the boundary limit that inherit from employee. So when I do this add all of question mark extends T, then in your test class, you can pass list add all of. So that is the idea when we work with question mark. This is the same rule. Even the Java API library follow the same rule. So Let's go and read this one. Any questions here? You want to look at the code, any code, let me know. Let me pull on by one. This is your my list. If my list interface add all method accept all the subclass, I cannot go with this declaration. I should go with this boundary. So when I do this one inside your implementation, the same rule. When you go to your test class, I can add all any subtype. So here is your list two. Add all of list two. So you can add some more element in the same list two. So list two, I'm going to duplicate the values. List two dot add of. Again, I put here. So 2 times I added the value. Okay, when you try to add all, it won't print. Okay, then I can print out list.toString. Let's see, do I override toString inside this class, list class? Okay, we have a toString method. Let me run this code. See, first I put an employee, then repeatedly I put 3 times add all collection because I added 3 times of employee the same. So when you do add all, 3 times employee will be, I mean, manager collections will be printed. Any questions here? The purpose of add all is it accept for the covariant rule, subtype can be acceptable to the parent type means you should have the boundary of question mark extends your boundary. Any questions here? Okay, the same rule when we for the number. We test this code in the exercise in class exercise 1. I cannot assign. So now let's go and copy this slide code in the IDE slide number 43. Let's copy the slide 43 code. The applications of question mark extends. So I have already the same name, numbers 1, things 1. Okay, doubles, I have doubles 1. Doubles 1. So let's go and see this code. Understand the question mark extends rule. So list number, new array list of number. I can create a list of integer, list of double. And I'm going to add even the double except a float. Number 1, right? So this is your number collection. Inside the number collection, I can add a float value number 1 dot add all. So you can add on to this collection because what is your int 1 is a type of integer, but it inherits from the number. That's what your add all method will accept anytime. If you look at that signature, any type which has extends from the type E. So what is your type E here is number. So number 1, this is your object type E. So when I call add all, you can add all the types. So this is the benefit of question mark extends. So the add all method can add all subtypes to the collection. Can add all subtypes to the parent collection. To the parent type. That's it. About question mark extends. Any questions here? So that's what we have put it here. Please read out this one. Let me know if you have any questions. We have some limitations. When you work with question mark extends, okay, let's go over this slide number 44. So you have to remember the advantages as well as drawbacks. So let's go to the slide number 44. Okay, I have a collection 1 as a type of list integer. So you can add 45, 35. Okay, let me create my collection which extends number. Okay, so you have no issue. If you have no boundary, you can add the same type. Even if it is an employee, you can add manager, add a value of manager, but not assignment. Okay, look at this scenario. I created a list which question mark extends number. When you put boundaries, you cannot add values. Okay, this is the rule. When your type is extended from some other boundaries, you cannot add. Whenever you use question mark extends, you cannot add a value. So in list dot add of new integer, the question mark is unknown type. Okay, but when you call a add method, what is the add method signature? Okay, let's go over the add method. Add needed type. But according to this scenario, you specify this one as question mark. So question mark means unknown type. Whenever I want to call a add method, it need a known type, which is E. Now here it is question mark. So your compiler will not verify the E type here. So you will get automatically compilation error. It cannot capture as a type. So if you declare your type as extends, you cannot add element. Does that make sense? I repeat, why add is not possible here is your add method signature need a type E. But whenever you use question mark, it is an unknown type. So for that reason, it cannot add a value. Add method need a E. E cannot replace with question mark. So whenever you use question mark extends type, you cannot add elements. Okay. But can I do add all? Issue. It's okay. You can add, but you can add another value. So don't worry about add all now. Let's talk about only add method. Okay. So all unknown type we cannot verify. So when you do question mark extends, you cannot add value. That is the rule. But you can add only null values. So hen list dot add of null. Only you can add a null value. You cannot add any specific value. Okay, so that is the drawback. But you can do other functionalities, but you cannot add an element. Even you can remove, you can do something else, but you cannot add. Please read out the slide. But if you don't specify any boundary, you can add. But if you say question mark means add method will not be applicable to insert values. Any questions here? Okay. So please read the conclusion. You can do remove, add all, remove all, remove all, retain all. You can do also, you can do some utility classes, libraries on your collection, short binary search, swap, shuffle, whatever you want. But you cannot do add method. Please read out the slide. Let me know if any point you need more clarity. Let me know if you need more clarity on this slide. Okay, let's move to the next. Question mark super boundary. Let's go over super. So super means you're passing the lower boundary. So any subtype, my boundary should be a subtype of manage. So in that scenario, you can go for question mark super bounded wildcard. Let's look at the scenario. Slide number 47. Step 2. So now I say any type which has the boundary is integer. So subtype, question mark super subtype, question mark extends super type. So now any input is a type of integer. So in that scenario, when you look at when I keep the add method, it accepts everything as an object because of subtype, any type. So for that reason, you can add a value, but over here you cannot retry. Okay, so let's do the limitations here. Whenever you use the super keyword, define a collection of parameter as type. You can add elements, but you cannot retrieve the element. So if you try to retrieve the element means it will be an object type. That's what any type subtype is integer. So up to all possible types, you can go with that. So I can add 10. It is an integer value. So it in for the boundary type. It can check with the input is a type of integer. So it can verify, you can add an element, but everything is added as a object type. When I want to retrieve, you can retrieve as an object. Object value is equal to, you can call list2 dot get of passing the 0th index. So it will read the value as a type of object, I think capital O, right? But if you try to read a value of integer, you cannot, okay? You cannot retrieve a value of specific type. It is not possible. That is the drawback with the super wildcard. List2 dot get of 1. So it is not possible. So this is the drawback. You cannot retrieve as a specific type. Drawback is cannot retrieve a specific type. Everything you can specify as an object. So what the error is? Cannot convert from super integer to integer. So you can do the casting. Okay, so this is the drawback, or you can retrieve as an object without casting. So this is the drawback. If you try to assign a type of return to get method, it will give you a compilation error. So you have to do casting. That is the drawback when you use the super keyword, cannot retrieve, but add everything as a type of object. It has some boundary limit. It will check it is a type of integer. Okay, so if I want to do both, here are the rules. Use an extends wildcard when you only get values. Use a super wildcard when you want only put a values in the structure. And don't use wildcard at all if you want to perform both get and put value. So we have so many examples here. Okay, look at the scenario. I want to sum of any collections. So for that reason, if I put number, it can accept only a number type. Even it cannot accept a subtype due to the covariant rule. Now in this scenario, if I put question mark extends, let's copy and do this one. And I'll show you, you can pass any collection of all subtypes because of extends boundary. So that is the advantage. So this is slide number 48. I have to copy the method. Okay, here is your method from slide 48. And I can call this values. So I have populated a list of integer collection and I have populated list of double collection. I'm going to call a sum method. So any collection which accept extends number. So which means all subtypes you can pass into this argument. So but the return type commonly I use double. So read all the values. Maybe in your collection you may have a double value or int value. So I convert all the values into a double value and I'm going to return the sum. So if I use question mark number, what happened? The rules, covariant rule. So go over these lines. You will get error. I cannot substitute integer to the number. I cannot substitute double to the number. So how can I accept all my subtypes? You need extends boundary. So when you run the code, it will print all the sum of the inputs. Okay, somewhere I have an error. Which line number? Okay, you cannot add values. What happened? Okay, let me, I don't know what the error defined here. So it will print all the sum of integers and all the sum of doubles. Any questions here about question mark extends? So the next example is, so here we want to do both read and write. I have a method called copy. Whatever input I have in the source, I want to copy into the destination. So we do both operations. Let's see this example, which is slide number 49. So this is the generic method which accept any type T. So the lower boundary should be this one. And the upper boundary, when you want the source can have the upper boundary, the destination has a lower boundary T. So super and subtype are same, whatever T you pass. Okay, what we are going to do it here is, let's go to the method call. Okay, so we have a objects collection, so which take any input, and I have an integer collection which has 5 and 6. I'm going to call copy of objs comma int. So this one is a source over here. Ints is a source and your objs is a destination. So I read the element from the source and modify into the, we are modifying, not adding an element. So let's go to the copy method. So destination, what is your T type here? Any type, but it has a boundary T. So over here, the type is object. So destination, any type which inherit from type T. So we pass object collection, right? Where I'm going to store it. Read the values from the source. So the source is a type of integer for this scenario. I'm going to read the data from the source and I'm going to modify the value in your destination by calling. So whenever you use question mark extend, you can use a get method. So I'm going to read the value and in the particular destination, I want to modify. So what will be the output of in this code is the 2 and 3.14 replaced with 5 and 6. So this is what we are doing. When I call this method, the values are replaced by reading the values from this source. So I use question mark extends. So you can do get method. So when I run this code, it will print the value as 5, 6, and 4. So can you read the slide for more clarification? Let me know if you need more clarity. Any questions? Okay. The same way we have another example. I use super integer. So whenever you use super type, you can add values. So I'm going to add a collection, both generating some numbers, whatever the size you pass. For example, if you pass 5, it will add the values 0 to 4 into the collection. So if you want, I can show that too. Slide number 50. So that's an example of add operations can possible with the super boundary. So let's go over here. For the test method. I don't have test class. Okay, here is the slide 50. Okay, so over here there is a boundary specified here. So in this method, what we are going to do it is I created a super type. Any type what you pass should be a subtype of integer. So I can add a value when you specify this type without boundaries. You can add without any issues. So I'm going to pass this list into this method. So the collection, I want to do add operation. So whatever collection you pass, you can add a value. So the input type, what you pass here is number type, right? So what the input, we call this method through my list dot, okay, count up to, I'm going to pass my list. So there is a boundary here. This class should have the subtype integer. So that's what we specify. Okay. So in this number, the subtype boundary is integer. Yes, number has the subtype integer. So read the value. I'm going to add into the collection. So if you want, you can print the collection to see what the output stored here. This out. COLLR. Okay, let's, what we are doing, just call. I'm going to print the list here, then I no need to print it here, right? So I print it in the method. So already this collection has 2 values. Then I'm going to add 3 values in this collection. So already your input collection has 1 and 3.14. So additionally 3 values from the range of 0 to 2. So this is an idea of whenever you use a super type lower boundary, you can pass its parent type. So that's the knowledge for this code. Any questions here? So the same way we call the count and this method by using different types, because when you use subtype integer means you can pass number type, you can pass object type. Just we call this method by passing different types, because any type has a subtype integer means all its parent type. For example, number, object, everything you can pass into this method. So we would like to improve the max function here. How to fix the local date. So over here, the comparable T has the issue if that particular interface does not implement comparable. So what we do it is question mark super. Then we will fix this issue. Let's go to the code, find max, generics. So we are going to write a 4th type of method, max for C. If any type, it has the parent also implement. So T extends comparable, which means the particular type which implements, otherwise at the subtype. So the parent also implement comparable. So when we do extends comparable, it's go to the parent and has boundaries. If the subtype also has that one, we can go with that type. So we specify 2 boundaries, parent, the same type or its parents. So if I run this code with the max4 method, you have no issue at this moment. So whatever type you pass, local date I pass, that type has comparable, right? That subtype is also allowed. That's what we specify. Local date is a subtype, right? So whatever type you pass, even the parent type as well as subtype, we set a boundary. So when I run this code through Max4, let's go to the Max4. I want to print the result. So the same method can work for any type. So we have no issue. Any questions here? So that is the benefit of going with super and subtypes. So to ensure that T extends comparable as for any super type of T, and also we can use question mark super. So this will eliminate the compilation here. Okay. Do you want me to continue or do you want me to stop? We have few more slides, 8 more slides. What do you think? Can I continue?
Yes, madam, please. I think it will be
Okay.
better to finish.
Yes. So what we need to do, if I want to do both operation, we have some difficulties. When I use question mark extends, I cannot add element. When I use question mark super, I cannot read the values. So if I need both, don't go for wildcard. That is the solution. Whenever if I want to perform both get and put operation at the time, you can go with only without boundary. So that is the solution. So when a sum count, so in that sum count method, take a input and inside that I'm going to call a count method. So whatever we did, we combine the two methods. The solution is whenever you want to do both get and put, no boundaries. Okay. So this is the two exception rule. As I mentioned, when I use question mark extends number, you can add a null value. When I want to use super keyword, then you can read a value as a type of object without casting. So this is the rule. Two exceptions. You can add a null value. You can retrieve a value as a type of object when you use question mark. Okay. The next thing is unbounded wildcard. This is the third type, as I mentioned in here. So the third type is no boundaries. So this boundary is useful when you are not depend on any argument. So this is the scenario which is useful when you are not depend on any input arguments. You are not depend on input arguments and the return. So for example, arguments and the return type. So we no need to worry about any rules, return type. For example, when you call a size method, right, it always return an integer value, right? So you can pass any collection and you can get a size, which means that collection has no boundaries, right? Maybe question mark, any type of collection. When you return, you are going to return only integer value. So I no need to worry about this one. So like that, we have some functions list.clear. So this method does not depend on any argument. When you look at the size method, uh, let's go to the array list. Let's go to the size method. If you look at size method signature. Okay, if you look at the size method, it does not take any argument, right? So the question mark wildcard, for example, if I want to pass any collection, I want to return a size. What I can do it here is I can pass any collection to this method. So you can write a method just like integer size, which take any collection. I don't worry about any type. Okay, whatever type you want, you can take and return the size because the size is not depend on any type. So I can return col dot size, right? So you want to write your own method which takes any type. So in that scenario, I can use question mark. I'm not worrying about any boundaries. So no boundaries. You can work on like this scenario. You can go for the wildcard symbols. So that's the idea. So this is similar. collection question mark is similar to any type extends object. So if you can use like this idea, whenever you want to go with the unknown, so we no need to worry about capturing a type. Okay, so like that. I want to pass any list, but when you call add or get, you will get compilation error. So you cannot do any add or get behavior to this. Now what will be the solution? I want to retrieve a type of any collection, but I want to do add and get. So in this scenario, question marks should replace with particular type. For example, you can retrieve, you have to write a helper method. This method has public visibility, which accept any type, but you want to do get and add method, then it should be captured as some type. You have to question mark should be replaced with some type. Now the question mark I replace with type T. Then if you have known type, you can work on add and get behavior. So that is the knowledge. You can write a wildcard helper capture method. Now you might ask the question, why should I have this method? So no need for this method when you go with this type. But in this scenario, you want to retrieve any type, but you want to capture as this something, you need to write a helper method to replace question mark with some letter. Then only you have no issue. So that's what the better recommendation is. Whenever you use question mark, you're not depend on any boundaries. So that scenario not depend on any input arguments type. I want to do something commonly, generally like size or clear something. You can go with this ideas. So that's called as wildcard capture. So you have some exercise. I want to reverse a list. I can take any input of list. Then I want to reverse it. When you put question mark and if you try to call a get method or set method, you will get a error. So we can replace with the wildcard capture methods, some helper method. Let me show you 11.4. I have a reverse method. So if it is a list T, I can use it. When I try to call something items dot get off 0, if I do something, you will get error. All right, items dot. Okay, you are passing an integer value. So what we are trying to do here is, okay, list dot. When I do this code here, okay, or here they retrieve as an object, then you have no issue. Let me copy in this. I didn't take the problem here. I have solutions here. Okay, so let me comment line this part. And what happened when I paste this code? I have to pass items. Okay, list. Your argument is a list. Okay, so now I have to pass items. So when you do this here, I have to replace everything with items. Okay, so when I try to do here by items. So here, when you call a set method, we will get a error because question mark is an unknown type. I want to modify this location with this new value. So I cannot do this when I write my method with wildcard capturing of question mark. So this is the problem. So in that scenario, your question mark must replace with the helper method by writing. So I can replace this reverse helper, the question mark replaced with the type. So then you have no issue. In this scenario, you can pass a list of integer, even you can pass a list of person. Whatever you do, it will work because of the generic known type T. So this is called wildcard capturing with helper method. So after reversing, for the reversing logic, what we are going to do it is read the last value into the first location. That's what we are doing. When you see here size -1, we are not calling any sorting method here. Just replace the values from the particular by calling a set method. We are replacing the locations. That's what we are doing. So this is an idea of wildcard capturing. Okay. So you have all those examples, whatever we done with the generic max, you can find out from the bounded variable to demo code, or I uploaded all those slide codes on the daily lectures. You can find even from there. Okay, that's all about this lecture. Okay, so what we'll do it in the afternoon is I will explain your lab assignments of 10 as well as your midterm review. Okay, can we end up the session now? Hello.